What he has to say about fuzzy thinking and all or nothing thinking versus all or nothing thinking actually kind of ties into our next piece here, which is about data gathering. And we're talking about collecting personal data on the internet. Some people say it's, no, it shouldn't collect any data at all. And obviously companies that collect the data say, no, it's awesome, let's collect it all. But the truth is there's good and bad to both. You have to look at them, and there is a lot of gray, and that's actually what her article was about. I mean, like it or not, we live in a digital world, and almost everything we do is touched by technology, and more that technology is connected to the internet, right? And that means that privacy has gotten to be a pretty tenuous concept. And I don't mean just by privacy the fear of being personally hacked, my personal bank account being hacked, or my bank being hacked, or your medical provider being hacked. I mean just the availability of your personal information and what you do on the internet through legitimate means, not hacking, but just the course of doing business during the day, browsing and so forth. You are leaving breadcrumbs behind that people can use and legitimately use right now. So some people worry a lot about this, some not so much, but we are all leaving digital breadcrumbs that are there for the picking. Which can be a good thing, by the way, we'll get to that in a bit, but maybe companies need to be a bit more cognizant of what the potential societal ramifications might be for gathering and use of personal data. So in her article, The 3 Dilemmas of Data Gathering, author Annette Aris suggests that if companies are to avoid a crisis of trust, that's the term she used, a crisis of trust with their customers over how they are using customer or visitor data, they need to think about these 3 ethical dilemmas. The first dilemma is buying data. And she doesn't mean companies buying marketing lists or email lists or demographic information and the like. She means literally paying customers to give them their personal data. Mike, I'm gonna give you money, or I'm gonna give you some service that you want if you give me all your personal data. Now, she gives a good example. We've all seen the commercials. Car insurance companies that offer discounts if people share their driving behavior or movement data, and they do that with a tracker. So in exchange for installing a tracker, these people will get potentially lower rates on their insurance. Now, if you think about this, makes a lot of sense. If the tracker shows that you don't drive much and you always drive the speed limit, then heck, you would think that you should get a lower rate than some crazy driving cross-country salesman, right?
Sure, of course.
It's like, sure, track my data, and if I'm doing well, charge me less. Sounds good. But Aris points out that this may mean that people on lower incomes are economically compelled to disclose their entire digital life in order to get a discount or free services. She says, digital privacy could become reserved for the rich because they would be the only ones who can afford, higher insurance premiums or a costly speeding ticket. So this is probably inadvertently targeting those who maybe can't afford insurance, so they're willing to give up personal data so they get cheap insurance.
Right.
Well, is that a good thing? That's the ethical question.
Yeah.
The second dilemma is one of what she calls solidarity. She means all of us on a level playing field where we all get treated the same. This has come to the fore several times over the past few years, talking about the availability of your electronic health records, your electronic health information amongst insurance providers and healthcare organizations. They share this data. Aris asks if people with a high hereditary risk profile would still be able to obtain life insurance or health insurance if that was the case, right? So maybe you're going to be winnowed out, not demographically. I mean, that already happens demographically. You're over 60, so your insurance rates go up. But no, individually. Oh, I can see. Oh, you've got a hereditary risk.
You got a marker.
I'm going to mark you, and now your rates are going to go up, or we're going to cancel you outright. This has been talked about a lot. So, if we have this completely transparent view of each individual's specific risks, could this have major implications for those amongst us who maybe are just less lucky? We're just born with the wrong genes, right?
Right.
The final dilemma, and this one's a bit stickier, I think. This is where there's a lot more gray, and that is influencing behavior. And I think I think this impacts everybody. Eris asked, to what extent is using data to actively influence people's behavior, advertising, acceptable? She uses the example of relevant advertisement. You'd probably all have experienced this. These are ads that pop up as a result of sites you have visited or searches you have done. It's called remarketing or re-advertising. And this is where you've searched for something, maybe, I'm interested in going to Iceland, and you're just doing all these searches on Iceland, and the next thing you see is advertising for, Iceland round trip, $250 bucks.
That's exactly what happened the first time I saw that.
Where'd that come
a
from?
couple of years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Right, they're looking over your shoulder, literally.
Literally,
They
it was
are
weird.
doing it. So the idea behind this, obviously, is that greatly increases the likelihood that you're going to click the buy button on some ad. Now, this isn't necessarily bad, but can it go too far? Eris puts it this way: all these recommendations, advertisements, pushed under our noses are based on in-depth knowledge of our unconscious impulses or searches and so forth, and therefore seem to be increasingly deprive us of free will. Now, I think that is going a bit over the top. I don't think advertising deprives you of free will. It does influence you. So the question is, how much influence or how much information should advertisers have in order to target you more specifically and get to the sweet spot? It's a great question. At the end of the article, Eris, rightfully I think, points out that companies, like Quality Digest for instance, almost don't have a choice but to compete in this data gathering rat race and using that data to their benefits. It's not malicious, it's just business.
It's not personal, it's just business.
It's just business. Unfortunately, that's true. Companies got to compete, and data gathering has become one of the tools. So therefore, she suggests that this decision making to use or not use this data should not be left to companies alone. And she doesn't specifically say this, but she does allude to it to government intervention. And she points to the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, which is in place in Europe, whose purpose is to, and this is from their website, protect and empower all EU citizens' data privacy and to reshape the way organizations across the region, the EU region, approach data privacy. Now that's a regulation in Europe. It isn't so much here. It is a big issue, and I think companies should be thinking about these issues and at least being transparent with their customers. Now in the EU, that transparency is required. Matter of fact, one example of that, a lot of websites you'll go to, some of our advertisers in fact, if you go to their website, you'll get a little pop-up that says this website is collecting cookies and gives you the option of whether you want those cookies collected or not. But that's because that's an EU regulation.
It's a regulation.
Exactly.
And actually, we're going to be talking about this more. Actually,
we're going to be talking about GDPR. We have a webinar.
We have a webinar coming up on this very topic. Next week we'll get into a little bit more.
So
but
it's a big issue, and it is ethical. The last one is something everybody's facing, and this is something companies are facing all over the place. Is okay. We advertise, and that's how and particularly media companies, that's the only way we make money practically. So how do you give advertisers the biggest bang for the buck? Well, that's by targeting users. Well, the more you target users, maybe the more invasive you're being. And for Horatios, it's not black or white, it is somewhere in the middle, and where's that heap?
Where is it not a heap?
Where is it not a heap, right.
I mean, to me, I look at it this way. I mean, we're in a society, we're in a culture that is a very human-centric, bonded culture, and society, and people are influencing each other all the time. I mean, no one person is in a vacuum of not having influences by their friends, their family, their loved ones, whatever, or just advertising, or whatever. So I mean, it's happening anyway. I mean, there's. What she's saying, what Annette's saying in this article is really a good point, that it can easily go too far and it can easily get invasive without us even knowing it. But there are some benefits to it too. I mean, as a consumer, having things served when you're looking in a place where you need it is valuable.
I mean, I've had those ads.
I've had remarketing ads where I'm like, that was really helpful.
That was helpful. It's like, I was looking, and it's only $250 round trip to Iceland. That's awesome.
That's right. Like I said, the first time it happened to me was from Expedia. Me going on Expedia, looking at a business trip to Atlanta or wherever the heck it was, and not buying the ticket because I wanted to shop around a little bit more. And then the thing popped up like an hour later when I was in Yahoo, and I was like, and it was shocking to me because I'd never seen it before. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. It's like, that is weird. What a weird coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Right.
So I clicked on it and I bought the ticket. But I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, it was a good rate. And anyway, it's interesting.
It was mind control.
Yeah, it was scary.
They made you do that.
It was really scary the first time you see that when you've never seen it before. It's
and
really
people
weird.
have been freaked out by that, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
But it can be effective. Like I say, in that case, I was like, yeah, I need that.
Yeah.
It's, obviously, I needed it based on my behaviors online, so I bought it, and they got a sale out of it. So it worked, and I was happy. I got a good rate, and it wasn't a bad rate. So it's interesting the way these things work.
Yeah.